Bryce Green, independent writer, political analyst, and contributor to Fairness, and one of my favourite guests, joins me now. Bryce, joking apart, I mean, I'm presuming Al Capone isn't going to be the head of the FBI, but it's a motley crew that are being assembled on the Potomac, isn't it?
Quite. Trump ran an anti-establishment campaign similar to what he did in 2016, where he campaigned against American interventions in Syria, having troops and bases all over the world. And he took the anti-war lane against that warhawk Hillary Clinton, who was campaigning on escalating war with Russia. And that resonated with voters to the point where, he defeated her. But his presidency was very different than that rhetoric. He continued expanding drone strikes. He continued a U.S. presence in the Middle East. He continued a maximum pressure campaign, or started the maximum pressure campaign against Iran. He killed the main Iranian general who was actually fighting ISIS. All of this because he hired and surrounded himself with neocon warhawks. And this version of Trump in 2024 did a similar thing. He told us that he was sick and tired of the U.S. wars and sick and tired of all the waste that's coming through the Pentagon. But then when he is elected president, he surrounds himself with the same group of people who was leading us into these wars to begin with. Just take a look at some of his picks for defense, some of his picks for the CIA. None of these people are peaceniks. None of these people are trying to reorient the American empire. No, what we saw was Donald Trump doing what he normally does, which is con people into believing one thing while doing the other thing while no one's looking. And I think we can expect more of that. We can expect that the bipartisan consensus on foreign policy will remain, despite all the rhetoric on one side or the other about who wants peace and who wants war. No, Donald Trump represents the establishment. Plain and simple, and we can expect that much of the establishment policies will continue or even escalate.
It's odd because he doesn't have to run again. He doesn't actually need anybody now. He doesn't need the special interest groups. He doesn't need the Israel lobby. 80% of American Jews voted for Harris. He didn't even get their votes, although he got $100 million from Adelson. The vast majority of the Israel lobby money went to Harris, his opponent. Why then? What is it? What's the alchemy involved? Because he strikes me as a guy who doesn't actually have an ideology himself, unlike these neocons. I saw him as a transactional sort of guy who wanted to do business, but he hasn't started off like that.
Well, yeah, Trump doesn't strike me as the guy who even genuinely wants to be president, but likes having won the presidency and likes being known and likes being popular, certainly likes making money off of it. But it's hard to pin down what precisely motivates Trump. But we can see this with any administration, whether or not it was Trump, whether or not it was, one of the other Republican clowns running for president, whether or not it's Biden, whether or not it was Obama, whether or not it was Bush. There is one party when it comes to foreign policy, and they staff the think tanks, they write the papers, they write the bills that gets passed in Congress, and they write the policy that Trump is going to enact. And so, again, there might be an anti-establishment rhetoric that goes on with a lot of this, but I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to see a rollback of U.S. empire. I would love to see Trump take a hard line against Israel. I would love to see Trump wind down the proxy war in Ukraine. But every bit of his personnel choices indicates to me that that's not in the cards. Now, why? It's difficult to answer the question specifically why, but that's the default of American politics. If you don't have any special point of view about what America's policy should be in Africa or in Eastern Europe or anywhere in the world, really, you're going to default to that class of people who consider themselves experts on these topics. And in Washington, D.C., that class of people is unified behind expanding the American empire, increasing American influence abroad, and ramping up the new Cold War against China and Russia. Now, one of the main differences between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on foreign policy was their position on the Ukraine war. But Biden's pick of Rubio as Secretary of State, or pick any of his picks, none of them indicate that there's going to be significant change in the Ukraine policy. The change in the Ukraine policy is going to come because Ukraine is losing and cannot possibly win this war. That's what's going to change the policy, not any anti-establishment credentials from Trump, not any desire to end the new Cold War, not any desire to reorient American policy. What we're seeing is that both Trump and Kamala, they both believe that the main enemy that the United States should be fighting against is China. And they both are in favor of ramping up tensions with between Taiwan and China. They're both in favor of arming the separatists in Taiwan, which could blow up into a nuclear war. This is a very dangerous policy that doesn't get critiqued much, but the fact is that both sides agree with it. And the same thing goes for Israel. The Israel lobby, while Trump may not have needed them explicitly, Trump certainly wouldn't be where he is without the Israel lobby, without the significant amount of funds, support, or at least the lack of an overt campaign against him from the Israel lobby. All of that is essential if you want to be successful in American politics. And the ending result is that both parties have an utter devotion to continuing Israel's genocide in Gaza. They want to continue to send weapons. They want to continue to back them in the United Nations. They want to continue to ignore international consensus about how this issue should be solved because they're supporting a rogue state, because America itself is a rogue state. And the foreign policy establishment for both parties is hell-bent on continuing that rogue state status.
Doesn't it all leave Kennedy looking a bit silly? Here he was going to swash his buckle. He was going to put Big Pharma and so on to the sword. He hasn't even got a gig yet, hasn't even got a title. At least Tulsi's now got a title. What's Kennedy getting?
I'm not really certain. The Kennedy campaign was interesting from the start. He had said some interesting things, some good things about the role of intelligence, the role of the deep political system in shaping the American democracy. And he was launching some very good critiques of it. But very quickly, you start to see that he was involved with the very people that he claims to be against. His campaign was financed by major Zionists, major supporters of Israel. On the Israel issue, I believe that he lost all semblance of credibility when he supported, not the way the Democrats did. He overtly said, what Netanyahu is doing is great and justified, and I hope he should keep doing it. That does not demonstrate to me someone who's interested in taking on the major power centers in America. I'm not quite sure what Robert Kennedy's motivations are. You had one of your callers earlier mention the fact that both his uncle and his father were assassinated by intelligence agencies, and that has to factor into his worldview somewhat. But the idea that you're going to get any sort of truth and reconciliation or any sea change in the political economy of this country through Donald Trump is simply laughable, and Robert Kennedy is surely smart enough to know this. So why is he doing what he's doing? You'd have to ask him. But he's certainly not an anti-establishment bastion that he would like people to think he is.
Now, the Democrats are not exactly showing signs of learning their lesson from what happened. The first spasm was to blame Latinos, blame men, blame black men. And of course, they had a lot of high-powered celebrities, though it turns out from the accounts that have been filed with the Federal Election Commission that they paid millions they paid Oprah Winfrey $1 million to tell us that democracy was in danger, but she needed to be paid $1 million in order to say it. They paid a group of hot-panted black girls that I'd never heard of before $5 million. They paid Beyonce $10 million, and she didn't even sing. So to what extent can we expect any real soul-searching on the Democratic side? I mean, if I was a leader of the Democratic Party, I'd be saying we lost because we're too pro-war, we're too pro-Israel, we're too pro-Wall Street, we're too distant from our blue-collar labor movement past. We have to reverse all these things. I doubt if anyone's saying that.
No, no one's saying that, but like you're saying, it's very obvious why they lost. When Biden came into office, there were, 5.2% of children were impoverished. When he left office, it was 13.7. When he came into office, there were all sorts of protections for people. There was eviction ban, unemployment benefits, extra SNAP benefits, Medicaid expansion, student loan pause, all of these things, which were good and reduced poverty, they started back up under Joe Biden. The Democrats didn't make any effort to expand them or continue them going. Actual food insecurity has increased 40%. Actual poverty, and this is according to American government statistics, has increased 67%. This happened under Biden. If you want people to vote for you, you have to make their lives better. That's a simple axiom that I think any politician in any part of the world will understand. If you want support, make people's lives better. The Democrats didn't seem to have any interest in that. And to the extent that they did make people's lives better, there were some, things on the regulatory front that they did that were very good. They never talked about it. They didn't talk about it because they don't care about it. They don't care about it because they don't care about the voters. That's why they lost. And they don't care, and that makes them less deeply reflexive or deeply reflective when they lose. So, if I'm a Democratic consultant and someone's paying me millions of dollars to tell them why they lost the election, I'd say, well, you didn't make people's lives better. But they don't care about that. They don't have a vision of the future that they want to enact in the world. They're not trying to secure democracy. They're not trying to end poverty, end empire, end any of that. They don't care. They don't want to win. If they lose, the consultants, they keep their jobs. The Democratic Party establishment, they all keep their jobs. The politicians keep their jobs. The machine keeps on going. Meanwhile, the American public is suffering. And so all this hand-wringing about, why did we lose the election? How could we have done that? It's a farce. They know why they lost the election, because poverty increased by 60% under the guy that they were trying to, hold up as a shining example. That's why. It's simple.
Well, one sign of a lack of introspection is that many of them are saying Kamala Harris should run again in 2029, and that's surely a non-starter.
Oh, no. Are they actually saying that? Because if so, I mean, they seem to be committing political suicide. You don't lose 14 million voters from the previous election because you ran such a good campaign and you ran such a good candidate and the country's doing so much better off. You don't do that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And they know this. But Democratic Party politics, unlike other, serious parties in the world, serious workers-based, workers' rights-focused parties in the world, they don't care about, what the policies are that are going to make people's lives better. They care about celebrity stuff. That's why they spent millions and millions of dollars on Beyonce and random podcasters that, we'd never heard of. That's why they spent millions of dollars on Megan Thee Stallion. That's why they do all these things, because they think that the American voting public is stupid enough that while their jobs are being taken away, while the food is costing twice as much as it did 2 years ago, and while they don't have as much money in their pocket, while the economy is being destroyed, while their cities are being destroyed, oh, look, there's Beyonce. Everything's okay. They think that Americans are that stupid. And if they think that Kamala Harris is going to find more success by doing the exact same thing in 4 years, well, then it's because they want to lose. Or at least, again, they don't care about winning. And it's really embarrassing to see. And man, it's so bleak. But we're trying.
Bryce Green, if they had any sense, they would hire you as a consultant. Not that you'd necessarily take the gig Although, if the price is right, I'd advise you to give them
George,
some
if they
good
hired me as a
advice.
consultant,
Price,
I would tell them exactly what I told you. I would tell them, all you need to do is make people's lives better. How do we win elections? Make people's lives better. Oh, we did some stuff. Well, tell people about it. They didn't do that. It's that easy. You can send me $1 million bucks now.
Price Green, thank you very much. I can't, but they should.